From the moment early humans first watched wounds close beneath layers of drying blood and new skin, the process of healing became not merely a biological event, but a profound mystery interwoven with survival, belief, and the unspoken understanding that the body carried knowledge older than any spoken language. Long before written history, tribes scattered across prehistoric plains observed how some injuries sealed while others festered, how certain plants soothed pain while others poisoned, and how the simplest act of rest could restore strength after exhaustion drained the spirit. In those early millennia, healing was inseparable from the movements of the earth and sky, bound to the rhythms of seasons and governed by forces people sensed but could not yet name. They looked to the behavior of animals for guidance, noting how a wounded deer sought particular herbs or how a felled predator licked its wounds until clotting began. And these observations shaped the earliest human attempts to influence the body's recovery. As human settlements grew into villages, and villages into the first recognizable societies, healing transformed into a shared cultural practice, entangled with ritual and emerging notions of the sacred. In ancient Mesopotamia, clay tablets etched with cuneiform signs described treatments that blended empirical knowledge with divine intervention, prescribing poultices of resin and beer alongside prayers to gods associated with health. The healers of Sumer believed illness often came from offended deities or wandering spirits, yet they also cataloged symptoms with meticulous care, creating the first proto-medical records that reveal a people striving to grasp patterns in suffering. Across the Nile Valley, Egyptian physicians documented far more than mystical remedies. They studied anatomy with a precision unmatched for centuries, gleaned from both observation of injuries and the ritualized craft of mummification. They stitched wounds with linen thread, set bones with splints of bark and fiber, and applied honey as an antimicrobial long before the existence of microbes was suspected. The papyri that survive from their civilization show a remarkable balance, a confidence in the body's capacity to repair itself, guided by the hands of practitioners who considered themselves servants of the gods, but also custodians of practical wisdom passed down from generations of trial and error. Healing, in their view, was the restoration of harmony, not merely of flesh, but of the cosmic order mirrored within each individual. While temples dedicated to Sekhmet or Imhotep resonated with chants meant to drive out disease, workshops nearby churned out salves, bandages, and surgical tools, demonstrating how from the beginning spiritual and physical healing coexisted in intricate layers. Far to the east, in the lands where the Yellow River carved fertile pathways through ancient China, healers gradually shaped a unique understanding of recovery, mapping the body not through dissection, but through energetic pathways they sensed through observation and contemplation. Early Chinese texts describe how practitioners believed life force, or qi, flowed like hidden rivers through the body, and illness resulted when these currents became blocked or unbalanced. The use of acupuncture, moxibustion, and meticulously prepared herbs became part of a tradition that viewed healing not as the correction of isolated symptoms, but as the rebalancing of the entire system, body, mind, and the natural world operating in a single continuum. Such a holistic perspective allowed physicians to treat recovery as a dynamic process where the smallest shift in diet, climate, or emotion could alter the trajectory of healing. Even today, these ancient insights continue to influence modern integrative medicine. Meanwhile, on the Indian subcontinent, the sages of early Ayurveda approached healing through a lens equally intricate yet distinct, seeing the body composed of elemental energies, doshas, that shape every individual's constitution. To heal was to restore one's innate equilibrium, accomplished through diet, meditation, cleansing rituals, and botanical formulations whose complexity still challenge modern pharmacology. Ancient Ayurvedic texts like the Charaka Samhita cataloged hundreds of remedies, drawing from keen observation of plants, minerals, and animal products in a tradition that seamlessly wove empirical practice with philosophical reflection. These early healers recognized the profound influence of the mind on the body, teaching that emotional disturbances could manifest as physical ailments and that the recovery of health required the restoration of mental clarity as much as bodily strength. In the Mediterranean world, Greek thinkers gradually shifted healing toward a more rational framework, though they never fully separated it from reverence for the gods. Within the quiet courtyards of Asclepian temples, the sick sought dreams of divine guidance, yet it was in the writings of Hippocrates and his students that a new approach took root. They emphasized clinical observation, pattern recognition, and the belief that the body possessed an intrinsic capacity for self-repair, that the physician's role was merely to support. Their methods included bloodletting, dietary adjustments, and environmental evaluations, grounded in the theory of four humors, fluids whose balance determined health or illness. Although flawed by modern standards, this system represented an extraordinary attempt to understand healing as a natural process governed by principles, not solely divine whims. Hippocratic physicians insisted on detailed case notes, laying the groundwork for medical documentation and establishing the doctor as an observer of nature's own corrective mechanisms. As the Roman Empire expanded, it absorbed Greek medical knowledge and amplified it through engineering prowess that improved sanitation, public baths, aqueducts, and urban planning. Galen, the most influential physician of the era, wrote extensively on anatomy and physiology based largely on animal dissections, shaping medical thought for more than a millennium. His theories spread across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, blending with local healing traditions and religious beliefs. Roman surgeons performed complex procedures on the battlefield, setting fractures with remarkable skill, and developing specialized tools for extracting arrows, controlling bleeding, and suturing deep wounds. Their military experiences transformed healing into an urgent discipline driven by necessity, pushing innovation even as broader medical theory remained tethered to Galenic principles. When the Western Roman Empire fell, much of its medical learning fragmented, yet healing practices persisted in monasteries, where monks preserved ancient texts and provided care within communities. Their herbal gardens became living repositories of traditional remedies, and the copying of manuscripts ensured that knowledge survived through turbulent centuries. These monastic infirmaries served as both spiritual sanctuaries and practical treatment centers, continuing the long tradition of healing as a synthesis of compassion, ritual, and empirical craft. Yet the true flowering of medical knowledge during the Middle Ages emerged not in Europe, but across the Islamic world, where scholars, physicians, and translators gathered works from Greece, Persia, India, and beyond, weaving them into an intellectual tapestry unmatched in its scope. In cities like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cordoba, vast libraries stored manuscripts that explored every facet of healing, from anatomy and pharmacology to psychology and hygiene. Physicians such as El-Razi and Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, approached medicine with a clarity that combined rigorous observation, philosophical understanding, and experimental curiosity. Ibn Sina's monumental canon of medicine became a cornerstone for centuries, mapping signs of illness, methods of diagnosis, and intricate preparations of compounds in a way that seemed to anticipate the systematic approach later used in modern medicine. These scholars recognized the body as an intelligent system capable of rebalancing itself under proper conditions, and they emphasized prevention as the highest form of healing, reflecting a worldview in which maintaining health was as important as restoring it. While their writings spread slowly into Europe, medieval healers there relied on a patchwork of folk remedies, religious rituals, and the lingering frameworks of Greek and Roman tradition. The arrival of the Black Death in the 14th century challenged every notion people held about healing, revealing how easily entire systems of thought could crumble in the face of an invisible threat. Physicians struggled to explain the plague's relentless spread, resorting to theories of miasmas and divine punishment, while communities turned to prayer, flagellation, or isolation in desperate attempts to survive. Yet even amid devastation, empirical observations emerged. Some noted that quarantine slowed transmission. Others recognized that certain occupations suffered fewer fatalities, and a few courageous practitioners began recording their experiences with unprecedented detail. These scattered insights, though overshadowed by the catastrophe, planted quiet seeds for future generations to examine disease with greater skepticism toward inherited assumptions. As Europe moved into the Renaissance, centuries of preserved knowledge resurfaced with renewed intensity. Anatomical studies blossomed, propelled by artists and anatomists determined to uncover the truths concealed beneath the skin. Vesalius challenged Galenic doctrine by meticulously dissecting human bodies, revealing discrepancies that had persisted simply because no one dared question ancient authorities. His detailed illustrations transformed anatomy from an abstract study into a vivid exploration of structure, granting healers a clearer understanding of how muscles, bones, and organs interacted during injury and recovery. This shift toward direct observation marked a fundamental turning point. Healing could no longer rely solely on inherited wisdom, but required engagement with the living and occasionally the deceased human form. Alongside these developments, the emergence of global exploration introduced European healers to new plants, minerals, and healing traditions from the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Indigenous knowledge, cultivated over countless generations, revealed remedies unknown to European apothecaries. Quinine from Andean forests, curare from tropical vines, and a vast array of herbs used by healers whose understanding of nature was both intimate and expansive. Although colonizers rarely acknowledged the depth of indigenous medical systems, they nonetheless absorbed fragments that would reshape the pharmacological landscape. Healing became an increasingly global exchange, though one fraught with imbalance, misunderstanding, and the loss of countless traditions suppressed or erased in the wake of conquest. As the scientific revolution dawned, the study of healing shifted once more. Physicians and natural philosophers began searching not only for cures, but for the underlying mechanisms that governed life itself. William Harvey's revelations about blood circulation shattered long-held beliefs and demonstrated that the body operated according to observable laws rather than mystical flows. Microscopes revealed a hidden world teeming with structures smaller than dust motes, inviting speculation about their role in health and illness. Still, even as new instruments illuminated the unseen, many practitioners clung to humoral theory, unwilling to abandon frameworks that had shaped medicine for centuries. The advent of the Enlightenment further challenged traditional understandings. Hospitals evolved from places of last resort into institutions designed for systematic observation and care. Surgeons refined their craft with unprecedented precision, though their procedures remained perilous due to the absence of anesthesia and sterilization. Amputations were performed with dizzying speed to minimize pain, and mortality soared from infections that healers could neither prevent nor comprehend. It was in this environment, harsh, innovative, chaotic, that pioneers of healing pushed boundaries, driven by a conviction that the body's secrets were within reach if only they could be examined closely enough. When the 19th century arrived, healing entered a period of astonishing transformation. The invention of anesthesia altered surgery forever, allowing physicians to perform operations previously unthinkable. Ether and chloroform ushered in a new era where pain no longer dictated the limits of medical intervention. Essentially, overnight, humanity crossed a threshold into a realm where healing could be approached with calm precision rather than frantic necessity. Simultaneously, the work of Pasteur and Koch illuminated the microbial causes of disease, offering explanations for infections that had haunted humanity since antiquity. Sterilization, antiseptics, and sanitary practices revolutionized medical environments, drastically increasing survival rates and reshaping public expectations. Vaccination expanded from a smallpox experiment in rural England into a global strategy that saved millions of lives, demonstrating that healing could extend beyond individual bodies to encompass entire populations. Laboratories buzzed with discoveries, isolating compounds that became the first modern medicines, bridging the gap between traditional remedies and scientific pharmacology. Healing was no longer merely the art of restoring balance. It was becoming a precise intervention grounded in biology, chemistry, and rigorous experimentation. However, even as scientific medicine surged ahead, other traditions of healing continued to evolve. Indigenous communities preserved knowledge of herbs, rituals, and holistic practices. Spiritual healers integrated ancient beliefs with contemporary insights, and midwives passed down generations of wisdom about childbirth, nutrition, and postpartum care. These parallel traditions offered perspectives that scientific medicine sometimes neglected, particularly the emotional, communal, and psychological dimensions of healing. While not always recognized by formal institutions, they remained vital to countless lives, underscoring that healing has always been more than the sum of biological processes. The early 20th century brought new challenges, including world wars, that forced unprecedented medical innovation. Battlefield medicine advanced rapidly as doctors confronted massive injuries, infections, and psychological traumas at a scale previously unimaginable. Techniques for wound management, blood transfusion, and emergency triage were refined under extreme pressure, later becoming standard practices in civilian medicine. The horrors of war also revealed a deeper dimension of healing: the treatment of psychological wounds. Soldiers returned with invisible scars that could not be stitched or bandaged, prompting the earliest systematic studies of trauma, shell shock, and the complex interplay between mind and body. As the century progressed, antibiotics transformed healing once more, rendering previously lethal infections manageable or eradicated. Hospitals grew into sophisticated institutions with specialized departments, advanced imaging technologies, and increasingly complex surgical methods. Organ transplantation, once a fantasy, became a reality as surgeons learned to replace failing organs and suppress the immune system's rejection responses. Healing now extended into realms that ancient practitioners could never have imagined, challenging humanity's understanding of life, death, and the boundaries of medical possibility. And yet, even with these advancements, the human element remained central. Nurses, caregivers, and family members provided the emotional support essential for recovery, reminding society that healing involved compassion as much as technique. Researchers delved deeper into the intricacies of cellular repair, immune function, and genetic diseases, uncovering patterns that linked health to environment, lifestyle, and inherited traits. Healing became the intersection of countless disciplines: biology, psychology, sociology, and even technology, as humanity sought to understand the forces that allowed the body and mind to restore themselves. Yet even as medicine ascended into realms of precision unimaginable to earlier civilizations, the deeper history of healing continued to reveal itself through discoveries that reshaped humanity's understanding of its own origins. Archaeologists unearthed skeletons bearing signs of successful trepanation, skulls with carefully cut openings that showed clear evidence of healing, suggesting that prehistoric surgeons possessed both courage and unexpected skill. These ancient patients survived not only the ritual act, but the recovery process, indicating that long before modern antibiotics or anesthesia, communities possessed practical knowledge to prevent infection and support survival after such invasive procedures. Each excavated skull served as a silent testimony to an instinctive human determination to intervene when the body faltered and to guide its innate capacity for restoration. In other parts of the world, mummified remains demonstrated the application of sophisticated splints, braces, and medicinal substances, offering glimpses into the lived experience of individuals whose injuries, illnesses, and recoveries were recorded in their very bones. Such findings sharpened modern understanding of ancient resilience, revealing how healing traditions evolved not solely from mysticism, but from relentless experimentation informed by observation and necessity. Even where formal medical systems had disappeared, the artifacts of their practice persisted, embedded in the long memory of human biology. As anthropology expanded in the 20th century, researchers encountered living traditions that preserved millennia-old healing practices, revealing structural and symbolic complexities beyond anything previously imagined. Among the Maori, healing rituals intertwined physical recovery with spiritual realignment, reinforcing the notion that well-being existed within a web of ancestry, land, and community. Across the Arctic, Inuit healers applied knowledge of local plants, animal fats, and environmental rhythms to treat frostbite, malnutrition, and exhaustion, showing intimate familiarity with the physiological demands of extreme climates. In the rainforests of the Amazon, healers recognized thousands of plant species and their medicinal properties, guided by oral traditions that held information so dense and detailed it rivaled written pharmacopoeias. The modern world initially dismissed many of these practices as archaic. Yet, as researchers documented their efficacy, interest surged. Ethnobotanists discovered compounds within traditional remedies that would later inspire modern drugs, and psychologists recognized the restorative power of ritual, storytelling, and communal support embedded within healing ceremonies. These insights revealed that healing had always been both a biological and cultural phenomenon, shaped by environment, belief, and collective experience. As humanity entered the digital age, the landscape of healing underwent yet another transformation, driven not by herbs or scalpels, but by information. Medical imaging advanced from grainy X-rays to scanning technologies capable of rendering the body in exquisite detail, exposing tissue structures, metabolic processes, and even neural pathways in real time. This new visibility shifted the perceptual universe of both physician and patient, making internal states as comprehensible as external injuries once were. Surgeons began working with robotic instruments, performing operations with microscopic precision, while researchers developed therapies that targeted molecules inside cells, tailoring treatments to genetic profiles. Healing now unfolded at scales previously inaccessible to sensory perception. Enzymes repairing DNA, immune cells coordinating attacks on pathogens, stem cells differentiating into tissues needed for regeneration. The body's internal drama became visible, measurable, and to some extent alterable. This new knowledge pushed humanity into domains where the line between natural healing and engineered repair blurred. Gene therapy promised to correct inherited illnesses at their source, while regenerative medicine sought to regrow organs using scaffolds seeded with living cells. The future of healing expanded into territories that ancient practitioners with their herbs and chants could never have conceived. Yet the core principle remained unchanged, supporting the body's inherent drive to restore balance. Still, the digital age introduced challenges of its own. As medical knowledge proliferated, individuals gained unprecedented access to information, yet not always the ability to interpret it. Healing became partially democratized, with countless people tracking their sleep, heart rates, activity levels, and even blood oxygen at home through devices worn on the wrist or integrated into their environment. Data flowed ceaselessly, offering a portrait of health in motion. Yet the interpretation of this data often required the expertise of practitioners trained to see patterns invisible to the uninitiated. This merger of self-monitoring and medical guidance expanded the frontier of healing into everyday life, blurring the boundary between treatment and lifestyle. Meanwhile, the study of mental healing grew into a sophisticated discipline as neuroscientists unraveled the brain's remarkable plasticity. They discovered that neural circuits could adapt, rebuild, and reroute in response to injury, practice, or emotional upheaval. This revelation reshaped the understanding of recovery from trauma, stroke, and psychological disorders, revealing processes far more dynamic than once believed. Therapists, physicians, and researchers recognized that healing the mind involved not only chemical changes, but the deliberate cultivation of new patterns, habits, and narratives. The interplay between memory, emotion, and physiology became clearer, demonstrating that healing could occur across multiple layers, from the microscopic to the experiential, each influencing the others in profound ways. Simultaneously, mindfulness practices originating from ancient traditions gained global recognition as tools for emotional and physical recovery. Studies revealed that meditation could reduce inflammation, strengthen immune response, and reshape brain regions associated with stress. Breathing techniques practiced for thousands of years found new validation in clinical settings, illustrating once again how ancient insights and modern science often converged when examined closely enough. Healing, in this expanded understanding, required cooperation between conscious intention and unconscious biological processes, revealing a partnership as old as humanity itself. As public health researchers examined global patterns of disease, they realized that healing extended into the social realm. Access to clean water, nutritious food, safe housing, and supportive communities proved as vital to recovery as any medication. Societies that invested in education and equality experienced better health outcomes, indicating that healing was not solely an individual process, but a collective responsibility. Environmental factors such as pollution, climate change, and urban design emerged as influential determinants of well-being, showing that the boundaries of healing reached far beyond the clinic or the home. In parallel, the philosophy of healing continued to evolve. Bioethicists questioned the implications of emerging technologies, debating how far humanity should go in altering biological processes. Should genetic modification be used to prevent disease, or did this cross a boundary into reshaping life itself? As neural implants emerged to restore hearing or mobility, scholars pondered the consequences of merging human biology with machines. These debates mirrored earlier transitions in healing history, when new discoveries challenged long-held beliefs and forced societies to reconsider what it meant to be healthy, human, and whole. Despite the complexity of modern healing, the essence of recovery remained deeply personal. Each patient navigated unique landscapes of pain, hope, fear, and resilience, reminding practitioners that medicine, for all its scientific rigor, remained grounded in empathy. Healing required trust, communication, and understanding, elements unchanged from the days when ancient healers placed hands on wounds or whispered prayers over the sick. The human desire to mend, improve, and overcome endured as a constant thread woven through millennia of transformation. In the midst of these advancements, the study of placebo effects added another layer to the evolving story. Researchers found that belief itself had measurable physiological consequences, altering brain chemistry, modulating pain perception, and influencing recovery trajectories. This discovery did not refute scientific medicine, but rather highlighted the extraordinary interdependence of mind and body. Healing emerged as a dynamic interplay between expectation, biology, and experience, suggesting that human consciousness participated actively in the recovery process. As technology accelerated, medicine moved toward personalization, seeking treatments tailored to each individual's genetic, environmental, and behavioral profile. No longer satisfied with generic approaches, researchers designed therapies that accounted for the uniqueness of each body, each pathology, and each healing journey. Algorithms analyzed vast datasets to predict responses to medication, plan surgeries, and detect diseases earlier than any human could. Yet, even as artificial intelligence integrated into healthcare, it remained a tool, dependent on the inherent biological capacity for healing encoded within every cell. As the 21st century unfolded, an unexpected dimension of healing began to draw global attention: the microbiome. Scientists discovered that within every human body lived trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, viruses, and archaea, forming ecosystems as intricate as rainforests, each contributing to digestion, immunity, metabolism, and even mood regulation. This revelation redefined the boundaries of the self, suggesting that healing required cooperation between human cells and microscopic partners that had co-evolved with humanity across millennia. Researchers traced connections between gut flora and emotional states, noting how disruptions could influence anxiety, depression, and inflammation. They found that certain microbes facilitated wound healing, stimulated immune responses, or protected against pathogens, demonstrating that the body's capacity to recover depended on alliances forged long before written history. This shift challenged earlier views of germs solely as enemies, illustrating how healing often emerged from balance rather than eradication. Parallel to these discoveries, regenerative medicine advanced toward possibilities once confined to myth. Scientists explored the capacities of salamanders, which could regrow limbs, organs, and spinal tissue, searching for insights that might unlock similar potential in humans. They studied the remarkable resilience of planarians, organisms capable of regenerating entire bodies from tiny fragments, hoping to understand the molecular instructions encoded within their cells. Though human regeneration remained limited, researchers learned to coax stem cells into forming tissues, creating lab-grown skin for burn victims, and developing experimental frameworks for regenerating cartilage, heart tissue, and nerves. Each breakthrough extended the horizon of healing a little farther, suggesting that the limits of recovery were not fixed, but continually redefined by the interplay of biology and imagination. Concurrently, the study of chronic illness reshaped the narrative of healing. Unlike acute injuries that healed visibly, chronic conditions unfolded slowly, often invisibly, challenging traditional notions of recovery. Patients navigated long-term management rather than cure, requiring physicians to reconsider their roles as not fixers of discrete problems, but as partners in ongoing journeys. Conditions such as autoimmune disorders revealed the complexity of the immune system, showing how the body could misinterpret its own tissues as threats, causing damage that required both suppression and support. Researchers probed the mechanisms behind inflammation, cellular miscommunication, and genetic predisposition, discovering how healing sometimes meant recalibrating the immune system's identity rather than repairing damaged tissue. This evolving understanding transformed treatment approaches, emphasizing lifestyle, environment, and psychological well-being in conjunction with pharmaceuticals.
While medicine advanced scientifically, humanity also revisited ancient questions about pain. Philosophers, physicians, and neuroscientists debated the nature of suffering, exploring why pain existed at all and how it shaped the healing process. They uncovered mechanisms by which the brain modulated pain signals, revealing that perception depended not only on physical injury, but on context, expectation, memory, and emotional state. Studies of individuals with rare congenital insensitivity to pain highlighted the vital role of discomfort in survival. Without pain, injuries went unnoticed, infections spread, and healing faltered. At the same time, chronic pain conditions demonstrated how suffering could persist long after tissues healed, suggesting that the nervous system itself could become imprinted with patterns of distress. Understanding these dynamics became essential to modern healing, prompting the development of therapies that targeted both the body and the neural networks governing perception. The expansion of neuroscience also deepened understanding of placebo and nocebo effects. While placebos demonstrated the healing potential of belief, nocebos revealed the opposite. Negative expectations could hinder recovery or even induce symptoms. These phenomena underscored the significance of communication between healer and patient, highlighting how words, tone, and trust influenced physiology. Healing was not merely technical, but relational, shaped by the human capacity to interpret meaning and respond to narratives offered by those entrusted with care. Across the globe, societies grappled with disparities in access to healing. Wealth determined whether individuals received advanced treatments, basic care, or none at all, revealing that recovery often depended more on political and economic structures than on biological resilience. Researchers documented how discrimination, poverty, and trauma embedded themselves in the body, influencing everything from stress hormones to cardiovascular health. Healing, therefore, demanded not only medical intervention, but systemic transformation, addressing social determinants that shaped the very conditions in which recovery occurred. Public health initiatives sought to expand vaccination, improve maternal care, reduce malnutrition, and combat infectious diseases, recognizing that the foundations of healing required collaboration across entire communities and nations. Meanwhile, climate change introduced new challenges to global health. Rising temperatures expanded the range of disease-carrying insects, bringing malaria, dengue, and other illnesses into regions unprepared for them. Air pollution exacerbated respiratory and cardiovascular conditions, while extreme weather events strained healthcare systems. These environmental pressures compelled researchers to consider healing within the context of planetary health, emphasizing the interdependence of human well-being and ecological stability. Ancient healing traditions had long recognized the bond between humans and their environment. Now, modern science affirmed that recovery could not be separated from the health of the world itself.
In parallel with these external forces, the inner landscape of healing continued to reveal surprising depths. Psychotherapists explored how generational trauma influenced descendants, passing through families like invisible currents. Neuroscientists traced how early life experiences shaped neural development, influencing everything from stress responses to immune function. These findings connected psychological safety with biological resilience, demonstrating that healing could begin long before illness appeared. Communities rediscovered the importance of connection, ritual, and storytelling, understanding that recovery flourished where individuals felt seen, valued, and supported. Advances in technology expanded the possibilities for rehabilitation. Virtual reality helped patients manage chronic pain, relearn motor skills after injury, or confront traumatic memories in controlled environments. Prosthetic limbs integrated with neural signals allowed amputees to move with increasing precision, blurring the line between biological and mechanical healing. Exoskeletons enabled individuals with spinal injuries to stand and walk, challenging assumptions about permanence and possibility. These innovations reflected a broader trend. Healing was no longer strictly about fixing the body, but enhancing its capacity to adapt. Simultaneously, the rise of personalized nutrition and metabolomics reframed how diets influenced healing. Researchers mapped how specific foods interacted with genes, hormones, and microbes, finding that no universal diet existed. Each body required unique inputs based on its biological profile. This nuanced approach echoed ancient teachings that emphasized individualized care, yet now grounded in molecular evidence. Healing through nutrition became an intricate science, merging culinary tradition with biochemical precision. In clinical settings, palliative care emerged as a discipline focused not on curing illness, but on alleviating suffering and enhancing quality of life. This field illuminated the profound truth that healing did not always equate to recovery. Sometimes it meant comfort, dignity, or reconciliation during life's final chapters. Practitioners worked to manage pain, support families, and honor the emotional journey of those nearing death, expanding the meaning of healing to encompass the entirety of human experience. Meanwhile, epigenetics reshaped the understanding of how behavior influenced health. Scientists discovered that lifestyle choices, stress levels, and environmental exposures could activate or silence genes, affecting susceptibility to illness. Remarkably, some epigenetic changes could be passed down to future generations, suggesting that healing could ripple outward through time. This revelation added new weight to the choices individuals made, underscoring the interconnectedness of personal well-being and familial legacy. Through all these developments, humanity began to appreciate the sophistication of the immune system as never before. No longer viewed simply as a defense mechanism, it became recognized as a dynamic orchestra of cells that communicated, learned, remembered, and sometimes misfired. Immunologists studied how the body recognized self versus other, how vaccines trained immune memory, and how certain conditions triggered autoimmune responses. This deeper understanding enabled the creation of targeted immunotherapies that harnessed the body's own defenses to fight cancer, infections, and chronic diseases, marking one of the most significant leaps in healing since the discovery of antibiotics. As global life expectancy increased, healing also intersected with aging in new ways. Geriatric medicine sought to understand how cellular repair mechanisms changed over time, why some individuals aged gracefully, while others experienced rapid decline, and how lifestyle choices influenced longevity. Researchers explored pathways associated with cellular senescence, oxidative stress, and telomere shortening, developing interventions aimed at supporting the body's natural restorative abilities even in later life. This growing field suggested that healing did not end with youth, but continued in shifting forms across the entire lifespan. Throughout these transformations, stories of individual resilience continued to inspire and inform. Survivors of extreme illness or injury demonstrated the extraordinary plasticity of the human body and the indomitable nature of the human spirit. Their recoveries became case studies that challenged medical assumptions, expanded research agendas, and reminded practitioners that healing often exceeded statistical predictions. These narratives wove modern science with timeless themes of hope, courage, and adaptation, reaffirming the belief that healing was as much a human endeavor as a biological one. Yet for all the technological and scientific breakthroughs shaping the modern landscape, the essence of healing remained rooted in an ancient truth. Every act of recovery unfolded within time. Time, with its steady and indifferent rhythm, guided processes deep within the body that no healer could rush without consequence. Cells divided, collagen formed, tissues remodeled, and neural pathways rewired themselves according to intricate sequences refined over millions of years of evolution. Researchers studying circadian biology uncovered how the timing of treatment influenced its effectiveness, revealing that hormones, immune responses, and even drug metabolism followed internal clocks that shaped the body's capacity to repair. This understanding prompted clinicians to reconsider the rhythm of healing, integrating chronomedicine into the foundation of care and emphasizing once more that recovery was a partnership between intervention and biology's own tempo. As further layers of complexity unfolded, scientists turned their attention to the role of sleep in healing, discovering that the mind and body performed some of their most vital restorative tasks during slumber. Memory consolidated, immune cells circulated with renewed vigor, and metabolic waste cleared from the brain through pathways only recently identified. Sleep deprivation, once dismissed as mere inconvenience, emerged as a profound disruptor of healing, linked to delayed tissue repair, heightened inflammation, and impaired emotional resilience. This insight connected healing to daily habits in intimate and previously unrecognized ways, suggesting that rest was not merely a passive state, but an active engine of recovery. In parallel, Advancements in cellular imaging granted scientists unprecedented glimpses into the microscopic drama of healing. They watched fibroblasts migrate across wounds like synchronized dancers. Macrophages engulf debris with fluid precision, and endothelial cells weave networks of new blood vessels to re-establish circulation. Fluorescent markers illuminated the choreography of proteins and enzymes as they coordinated tissue regeneration with astonishing complexity. These visualizations did not diminish the mystery of healing. Instead, they magnified it, revealing a world of activity that unfolded silently within every individual, regardless of whether they were aware of the intricate labor occurring beneath their skin. During the same period, advancements in virology transformed understanding of viral infections and their long-term impacts. Researchers explored how certain viruses could integrate into the human genome, lie dormant for years, or reshape immune function in subtle ways. They investigated conditions like post-viral fatigue and chronic autoimmune activation, uncovering links between infection and prolonged disruption of the body's equilibrium. These findings reshaped how physicians approached recovery, emphasizing that healing from illness did not always end with the elimination of a pathogen. Sometimes the aftermath required as much attention as the acute phase itself. Simultaneously, the study of rehabilitation sciences expanded dramatically. Physical therapists developed techniques that leveraged neuroplasticity, retraining the brain to compensate for injuries through repetitive, targeted exercises. Occupational therapists devised strategies to rebuild daily function, recognizing that healing extended beyond physiology into the realm of identity and purpose. Speech therapists worked with patients recovering from strokes, brain injuries, or neurological conditions, guiding them through the painstaking process of reconnecting thoughts to words. These disciplines illuminated the multidimensional nature of recovery, suggesting that healing meant restoring not only the body, but the patterns of living that gave life continuity. Global patterns of healing also reflected cultural shifts. In many societies, the stigma surrounding mental health gradually diminished as individuals recognized the necessity of addressing emotional wounds with the same seriousness afforded to physical ones. Trauma-informed care emerged across social services, education, and medicine, acknowledging that healing could not occur in environments that ignored the impact of past suffering. Therapists explored modalities such as EMDR, somatic experiencing, and narrative therapy, each revealing different pathways by which individuals could reprocess trauma and reclaim agency. These methods underscored the profound interplay between memory, emotion, and the body, illustrating that healing often required confronting experiences stored not only in the mind, but within the patterns of tension, breath, and posture that shaped everyday life. Meanwhile, communities re-examined the role of ritual in recovery. Ceremonies that had been marginalized or dismissed as cultural relics regained recognition for their psychological and social functions. Whether through prayer circles, communal meals, vigils, or ancestral rites, rituals provided structure, meaning, and collective support during times of illness or grief. Anthropologists observed how these practices fostered healing by reinforcing identity, belonging, and continuity, offering individuals a sense of participation in something larger than themselves. This rediscovery highlighted that healing was not solely an internal process, but one woven into the social fabric. Simultaneously, technological innovation continued to transform medical practice. Wearable devices offered real-time monitoring of heart rhythms, glucose levels, and respiratory patterns, enabling early detection of complications and personalized adjustments to treatment plans. Remote consultations expanded access to care for individuals in remote regions, reducing disparities that had persisted for generations. Artificial intelligence assisted in diagnosing complex conditions, scanning medical images with extraordinary accuracy, and identifying subtle patterns that often eluded human eyes. Yet, even as these tools augmented human capability, practitioners emphasized the irreplaceable role of human judgment, compassion, and intuition, qualities that anchored healing to its timeless foundations. The integration of genomic medicine further expanded the frontier. Sequencing individual genomes became commonplace, allowing physicians to identify genetic predispositions and tailor interventions accordingly. Pharmacogenomics predicted how individuals metabolized medications, reducing adverse reactions and improving outcomes. Researchers investigated gene editing technologies such as CRISPR, exploring their potential to correct inherited disorders at their root. Though still in early stages, these developments suggested a future where healing could occur at the level of DNA, rewriting the biological script that determined susceptibility to illness. At the same time, an emerging field, psychoneuroimmunology, deepened understanding of how thoughts, emotions, and immune responses intertwined. Studies demonstrated that chronic stress impaired wound healing, suppressed immune function, and accelerated cellular aging, while positive emotional states enhanced resilience and recovery. Meditation, social connection, and creative expression all showed measurable physiological benefits, underscoring that healing could be cultivated through practices that nourished the mind and spirit as much as the body. This interdisciplinary approach echoed philosophies from ancient cultures, but now carried the weight of empirical evidence, bridging traditions once seen as incompatible. In hospitals, compassionate design reshaped clinical environments. Architects incorporated natural light, greenery, calming acoustics, and spaces for reflection, recognizing that surroundings influence recovery. Patients exposed to views of nature required fewer pain medications, healed faster, and reported greater satisfaction. Such findings inspired broader initiatives in urban planning and public health, linking environmental aesthetics to community well-being. Healing, it became clear, extended into the atmosphere individuals inhabited. Parallel to these advancements, bioengineers explored methods of integrating technology directly into the healing process. Smart bandages monitored wound conditions, releasing medication when needed. Bioprinted tissues offered frameworks for reconstructive surgery, while nanomedicine delivered treatments with unprecedented precision. Researchers developed molecular sensors that detected disease markers before symptoms appeared, allowing early intervention that transformed prognoses. Each innovation pushed healing toward greater efficiency and personalization, yet all remained rooted in the body's inherent capacity for self-repair. In addition to scientific progress, global migration and cultural exchange enriched the healing landscape. Traditional remedies and practices circulated across continents, finding new relevance in regions far from their origins. Acupuncture clinics appeared in cities worldwide. Ayurvedic principles influenced wellness movements, and indigenous plant medicines gained renewed interest among researchers studying their biochemical properties. This blending of traditions illustrated a global recognition that healing wisdom emerged from many sources, each shaped by its environment and history. As digital communication connected individuals across vast distances, support networks formed in online communities. Patients with rare conditions found solidarity, shared knowledge, and emotional reassurance that transcended geography. These networks democratized access to information and allowed individuals to advocate for their own care with newfound confidence. Healing, once confined to local spaces, became part of a global conversation enriched by shared experience. Yet even as humanity explored the most advanced frontiers of medical science, crises such as pandemics revealed the fragility of global systems. They demonstrated how healing required cooperation, adaptability, and trust across populations. Researchers worked tirelessly to develop vaccines. Epidemiologists tracked transmission patterns, and healthcare workers risked their lives to support the ill. Communities rediscovered the importance of collective action, mutual aid, and empathy. The world witnessed how recovery extended beyond individual bodies into the interconnected systems linking families, nations, and ecosystems. In these moments, the history of healing felt especially present. Lessons drawn from centuries of disease, resilience, and adaptation resurfaced with renewed relevance. Practices such as quarantine, sanitation, and vaccination, once revolutionary, became indispensable tools for global survival. The pandemic revealed both the strengths and vulnerabilities of modern medicine, reminding humanity that healing remained an evolving pursuit shaped by knowledge, environment, and shared responsibility. As the century advanced, the philosophy of healing expanded to include preventative frameworks that aimed to cultivate well-being before illness arose. Public health campaigns promoted exercise, nutrition, mental resilience, and stress reduction, recognizing that prevention required far fewer resources than cure. Education programs integrated emotional literacy, teaching children skills for navigating conflict, managing anxiety, and building supportive relationships. These initiatives reflected a broader societal shift toward embracing healing as a lifelong process, not an event triggered by crisis. Simultaneously, creative arts therapies flourished as complementary healing modalities. Music activated neural pathways linked to emotion and memory. Dance restored connection to the body. Visual arts provided outlets for expression that transcended language. Therapists integrated these practices into treatments for trauma, neurological disorders, and chronic illness, observing how creativity bypassed barriers that traditional methods could not. Healing thus expanded into a realm where imagination and expression became catalysts for transformation.